Hello, my name is Nia. I am from Truro class, and today I want to tell you about the comparison of Jakarta and Singapore. So the first thing is about their currency. In Jakarta's currency is Indonesia's currency, which is actually weaker than Singapore's currency. And the price of things. Since Indonesia's currency is weaker than since Indonesia's currency is weaker than Singapore's currency, then the price of things in Indonesia is much more cheaper than in Singapore. Number three, the transportations. People in Indonesia often use motorcycles and cars as their daily transportations. But in Singapore, they usually uses MRT, which is Singapore's public transportations. Number four, their pollution. As as I say that people in Indonesia often uses motorcycles and cars as their daily transportations, it often causes a much more pollution than in Singapore, which is they uses MRT. MRT did not release that much pollution because there is not much of MRT transportations in Singapore than Indonesia. Because in Indonesia, the transportations of motorcycle and cars are overly used. Number five, their diversity of food. In Jakarta, diversity of food is they have a diversity food of the traditional food. But in Singapore, Singapore has a diversity of food of the types international food. So, in my opinion, Jakarta has more diversity of food than in Singapore. Number six, the types of people. People in Singapore tend to be more hospitable and more friendly because they have a better human resources than Indonesia. Number seven, the rules. In Singapore, the rules are stricter than in Indonesia. So in Singapore, their safety is much more. Their situation is much more safe. Is safer than in Indonesia. Number eight. Hmm.
What? What again?
Forgot. Wait.
People, then
Dan.
food, then
Dan.
the culture.
Oh yeah, the culture in Jakarta, which is in Indonesia. Indonesia has much more culture than in Singapore because in Singapore, people over there are mostly from Malaysia, from China, or wherever around the world because Singapore is much more. Well, we could say that it's much more popular, so people tend to go there to search for work or just visiting. And then number nine, oh yeah, their population. In Jakarta, the population is much more dense. It is denser than in Singapore. Number seven, the one the area in Jakarta is so Jakarta is a city, so Jakarta is a little bit smaller than in Singapore.
Okay, fine. Then, out of all of that, in your humble opinion, which one is the better one?
In my opinion, Singapore is better
Because
they have a stricter rules and policy which makes it safer, and they have a better human resources and technology. So we could maybe work or study better than in Indonesia.
okay. Since you mentioned about Singapore being better, do you consider Singapore to be the best country?
Well, I did not really consider Singapore to be the best country because there might be other countries that are probably safer or their technology is better. For example, in Finland.
Okay. What about, in your opinion only, the best country? What is the best country, in your opinion only?
In my opinion, the best country is which one? Finland,
Finland. Why?
because they have a more advanced technology than in Singapore, and they also has a better human resources, and their education is better than in Singapore or in Indonesia.
Okay. In what ways are Singapore better than Finland?
In what ways Singapore is better than Finland? Well, maybe in their diversity of culture and food, because Singapore, as I say, Singapore is a popular country, so people from other countries brings their cultures to Singapore, and it makes Singapore has much more diversity of cultures.
Okay. And no, too easy. Too easy. How can Indonesia, because that Singapore is in so many ways better than Indonesia, right? How can Indonesia be as good as Singapore? What do you think?
Well, in my opinion, we could change the ways of people think from maybe their daily activities or from their education from they were little, and change the politics, which is only for the only for the government, and it has no benefits for the people of the country. So we might as well need to remove that and replace it with another one.
That's it?
And also change the ways of their education. So maybe kids could make a better generations than before.
Okay. So kids can be better than before, you said. And then also, okay. What we call it? One more, yeah. If you say something like more education and more stricter rules, why is it that sorry, it's like this. Indonesia has a strict rule also, not just in that part, but about the other things such as first, no criminal activity, no motorcycle gangs, so on and so on and so on. But we see in reality, Indonesia is still filled with so many criminal activities. Okay, so but Singapore, you see firsthand, like they are given the rule, they will do that, they will do exactly what the rule says to them, no questions asked. Okay, so what makes this phenomenon happen? What makes it different? Why are people in Indonesia so much more rebellious than Singapore?
Well, in that case, we could take the factor of their how they think, or even from their human resources. From their human resources, Indonesia has a low human resources, which makes them think that even though that they are given the rules, it makes them think that even if they don't get caught, they could still do it, right? Because the government of Indonesia didn't do their job properly and catch them. Even though some of them actually, even though the government manages to catch them, there might be other people that are also doing that, but they didn't got caught. And from their from their minds, well, it could be from the studies.
Education.
From their education. In Singapore, their education already taught kids creativity and the positive minds than in Indonesia. Indonesia actually focuses on their academics instead of the creativity and the minds of kids. So if Indonesia wants to be as good as Singapore, well, Indonesia might need to take a big step.
Okay, fine. Alright, now you give me 5 questions.
Yeah.
Of course, about comparison degree can be about Singapore and Indonesia, but maybe if you see what I did, can be outside of that, like the Finland.
Well, what actually makes... Well, people say that Finland and Switzerland is pretty similar. Well, what makes them different or similar? The factor of it.
The factor of what?
The factor...
Safer. Finland is safer.
No, Finland and Switzerland. Yeah.
What makes Finland safer, or what makes Finland what?
Better.
Better than any other country. Okay. How to describe it? Finland is the most quote-unquote caring country in the world right now, because it's hard to replicate what they had done for their people, because they have been doing the system and improving it since the beginning. They have a very, very thorough system where basically the kids are already seen, the potential of those kids has been seen. So the government can redirect the kids' desires and also talents, so they can produce something great. of course. So when they were a child, they were already given the things that they need to do, and also the accommodation of what they should do, which is why you see in Finland the people are mostly happy and also less. They didn't do that much criminal activity because there's no reason. They have what they need. The government has provided to them. Now, the difference is between the other countries is that the other countries really, the other countries let the people do what they want, and the education of other countries are not as complete or as redirecting as the Finland, because because unlike Finland, the people inside this country and others use education or view education as something normal and formal, instead of in Finland they view education as something that shapes the kid's future and also how they perceive the morals. So Finland is the best in terms of something like this because they actually see the potential of each individual. This cannot be replicated in other countries unless you have the same system, because of course in order to have this kind of system you need money, you need government that knows their people, and you need to understand how your country actually works. Next question.
My second question is, people outside of Indonesia already know that Indonesia is a corrupt country. Well, what factor makes Indonesia a corrupt country, and why does that factor occur?
This has something to do with what you said before, which is about mindset. Now, if we take a look at Indonesia's reason of corruption, is because Indonesia is, well, poor, quote unquote. Okay, the people, even the governments, are struggling. The people are struggling, but the people that works at governments, they do not really struggle that much. However, I can say in some degree, the people there had know what it is to feel suffering, and also propagandas and also viewpoints on life. So Indonesia is corrupt not because of its condition, not because the people keep wanting to get more money, but because they had known what is suffering, they had known what it's like to be poor. The core problem for Indonesia's corruption is actually more to the condition of the country itself, which is it's hard to find a suitable job and it's hard to maintain a suitable job. Once you lose that, of course, you lose everything. You will not do anything. You will not get any money, and therefore everyone will be at a loss. So the core problem of Indonesia's corruption is related to the economic condition of the country, which is we are not good in economics. We can say we are in a condition where we need constant money, because if not, we will go to poverty.
Well, my third question. Indonesia is a democracy country, right? So, what is the positive side of Indonesia being a democracy country?
Change the question because it has no comparison degree.
Oh yeah. In your opinion, how would you change the minds of people so that the people of Indonesia could have the same mindsets as people in Singapore and in Finland?
This is a hard approach, and there are two ways, but it's not going to be easy, and also it's not going to be pleasant or nice. First, Indonesia democracy prevents any type of mindset change, because now people think for themselves, and when people think for themselves, looking at the state of the Indonesia right now, they just need money, 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 money. The core problem of this, however, is that Indonesia has no money. Okay, so when the people needs more money, but the country has no money, of course, people will start thinking how to achieve more money, which leads to more criminal activities and so on and so on. So the first thing to do is what Singapore tried to do, which is changing the government system to be not a democracy, but actually a bit more like dictatorship or communism. However, you need to have a strong leader, and a leader who knows more about the country than anyone else in order to do this. A very risky, but also a very effective if it is done properly. The second thing is, if you don't want to abandon Indonesia's democracy system, is to have a very good working environment for the people. Because right now the problem of Indonesia's corruption and economics is that we have no money. So to get more money, you need to get more people to get you more money, which is basically improving your human resources. This is hard because Indonesia's human resource problem stems from their abilities to not provide free education or quality education to the people. So, in order to combat this, the government actually need to give people more money for them to pursue higher education. But of course, this is hard. It will take more money to burn, and it is very risky because maybe the people will not go back to Indonesia. But it is one of the ways.
Well, we can say that Singapore is better than Indonesia, right? Well, in some cases, Indonesia might have some things that are better than Singapore. Well, in your opinion, what are those things that makes Indonesia is better than
That makes Indonesia better.
that makes Indonesia better than Singapore?
Of course, you all know about things that are better in Indonesia. I think you have mentioned some. First, we have more natural resources. Second, we have much more tourist attraction or potential tourist attraction if compared to Singapore. Third, and this can be seen in many different perspectives. But Indonesia has more nature untouched, nature untouched spots. Because of course Indonesia is a big country and archipelago, which means there are so many islands that are just not contaminated by modernization. So I would say, if compared to Singapore's more bustling and high-end technological cities, Indonesia has an edge where the people and the conditions inside the country are still very down to earth, or in another word, very natural. not full of cities and machines.
Hmm. Well, you did say that the working environment in Singapore is better than Indonesia, right? That so, what factor does makes it the working environment in Singapore better than in Indonesia?
I think you just said factor all the
Yes,
time.
because I don't know what to ask about.
Factor always. What again? What are the
The-
factors?
The factors that make working environment in Singapore is better than in Indonesia.
One, of course, more money. You see? Okay, because Singapore need those workers actually. So Singapore's the benefit of working in Singapore is that they have more money. Second, for the people of Singapore, working at Singapore actually lets the workers be fairly compensated. As in, people that work in Singapore know what they sign up for and they are paid accordingly. If Indonesia, as you can see, some jobs are harder but pays less if compared to what we have in Singapore. Singapore pays people fairly, but in Indonesia, some jobs are just underpaid. So the factors of being better of working much more desirable in Singapore is that you get more money and you get more compensation. That
But
I think.
I think that's all about comparisons of Jakarta and Singapore. Thank you.
Yeah.